What's up, everybody? This is Nerd Plays. I'm Manuel, and today, as you guys can see, I'm going to be talking about The Last of Us, the series, the HBO series. I haven't really talked about it. I just got finished watching episode 3 a couple of hours ago, and I've been wanting to talk about it in depth with somebody, and I said, you know what? I haven't really talked about the series at all on my channel, so let me do that right now. I'm going to talk about episodes 1 through 3, my impressions, what I like about it, don't like, etc. If you like that type of content, remember to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Hit that notification bell. That way you know whenever we got new videos coming out, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. So I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler free as much as possible. I don't think that's going to last very long because I really do want to talk about specifics in those first 3 episodes, especially episode 3. So if you don't know anything about The Last of Us, and I would argue, even if you do know about The Last of Us, even if you have played the games, but you haven't watched the series yet, I would say avoid spoilers if possible. So if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it, go away from this video, watch the first 3 episodes, come back and let me know what you guys think. The first thing I want to point out is the fact that I love The Last of Us in terms of the games, both games, part 1 and part 2. I've played part 1, which is what I'm going to be calling it throughout the video. Part 1, when it first came out, I played the remaster, and then I played the remake, which is the official part 1. And I platinumed recently, so I've watched a bunch of Let's Plays as well online. I just love watching people experience that game for the first time, part 1 and part 2, but especially part 1 a bunch of times. I can't even count how many times I've watched somebody play through that game from beginning to end. So I know this game and this story, this world fairly well, especially part 1. I got a lot of it fresh on my mind because, like I said, I just recently platinumed it, and that to a certain degree, especially in the first episode, has made me more critical of the series than maybe what I should be. I gotta admit that I've been a little more negative than maybe what I would be had I not had if I didn't have this game so fresh in my mind. And the way I've been thinking about it is like, it's kind of like when you love a song that you hear for the first time, or you know it because you love it so much, you've listened to it so many times, so you know it from beginning to end. And then somebody does a remix, or there's a new version of that song, or whatever, it's re-recorded, whatever it may be, and the newer version just never lives up for the most part. This is true of most cases, at least in my experience, but not all. The new version doesn't quite live up to the first version that you heard, that I heard originally. Like when I listen to the new version, I'm paying attention to the differences. I'm like, this is not the way it was sung originally. This note shouldn't be like this. You know, I'm missing this part, this instrument. Like, I'm much more critical of the newer version because I love the first version that I heard of the song more. And that's what's happened to me with The Last of Us, the show. I know and I love the games so much that I've been more critical of the differences that exist in the series, in the episodes so far, more so than maybe I should be. And that is especially the case in episode 1. Come episode 3, I've already accepted, I understand their vision, and I respect it fully. But let me start then with episode 1. I had mixed feelings about episode 1, and I was kind of disappointed in myself. Kind of in myself, because I had it so hyped up, and because of everything I just said, I wanted so much from that first episode. And when I think back on it, it did hit. It is such a faithful adaptation to those story beats in the game. But I think that was precisely my problem with it. My issue with it was that I feared after that first episode that this series was going to be nothing more than simply a faithful adaptation to the game. And that's all anybody wants, pretty much. That's all I was asking for, to be honest, before the series came out. But when I watched that first episode and it was so close, so faithful to those story beats in the game, that I kind of felt let down. I felt let down for 2 reasons. One, this is Naughty Dog. This is Neil Druckmann. You know, they're all involved in this, and they're known to take risks. Part 2, Last of Us Part 2 is a clear example of that. And I felt like this, especially the first episode, was too safe for them. I wanted, and I want, The Last of Us, the series, to be much more than simply a faithful adaptation to the game. I want it to be something special, especially for people who haven't experienced the game, who don't play video games. I want them to watch this and be so amazed at the story and at the world, etc., just like we were when we first played The Last of Us Part 1. and back when it first came out. And I left away thinking, this is just a safe adaptation. They're not veering away too far. They're not doing anything different or special with it. It's just, it felt rushed. It felt like it was trying to hit the story beats that we all know and love, trying to replicate the scenes, trying to replicate the dialogue and the in-character interactions, etc. And I wanted more from it. But then, then the second reason why I felt kind of disappointed with that first episode is the fact that when they did do changes, that's why I say this is my own fault, right? I'm here asking for them to do something different with this story, with this world, and yet when they did give me those differences in that first episode, I was bothered by them. I was bothered by the differences. I said, why? Because it was kind of like this uncanny valley thing. Like, why would you replicate this scene so precisely, so faithfully to the game version, and yet make certain differences, like not go all the way making it identical? Like you just brought it to 90%, 95%, and then you changed 5% of it or less or whatever. And it was always jarring for me. Specifically, for example, the Sarah scene at the beginning, which is the greatest introduction to any video game ever, is the whole Sarah sequence in The Last of Us. And obviously they did a great job. I was pretty blown away towards the beginning of how they did this, how it felt, how real it felt, especially having lived through what happened in COVID, etc. It felt realer. It felt scarier, that moment. And there's a moment after all the Sarah stuff, and you have Ellie and Joel in the game. It happened different. Tess was out with Marlene finding looking for some weapons or whatever. And Joel was left with Ellie. In this game, in the series, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but Joel and Ellie are in the room together, and Joel is sleeping and he's, reminiscing or whatever. And Ellie passes by and says, "Your watch is broken." I'm summarizing the scene. There's more that happens in the scene. "Your watch is broken." That scene in the game was so powerful because as soon as she said that, the music cue hit in the game. And Joel opened his eyes, and you know what that meant. You know what the watch means. You know what you just lived through with Sarah. In the show, when it happened, Ellie kind of says it in passing. She's kind of off camera. But my issue with that scene was the fact that it was pretty darn identical to the game. And yet when she makes that comment, "Your watch is broken," there's no music cue. There's no, the music doesn't start playing at that moment. And I'm like, why? Why would that scene be so close to the game and you not do the one thing that would have given me chills, which is the music cue? That's one of the best parts of that scene in the game. It was well directed. So it's stuff like that. It's nitpicky stuff like that. The end of that first episode also kind of let me down. The fact that the big reveal, here's a big spoiler for anybody who hasn't watched it or anything like that. Ellie obviously is she's immune to infection, and that's revealed at the end of the first episode. Except it's kind of revealed off screen in a sense. She's over here explaining to Tess in the background what happened. She had been bitten. She's been bitten for weeks, and she hasn't gotten infected, etc. And the camera's more focused on Joel, and he had just beat up this police officer or whatever, federal officer, and they're trying to focus on that. On his trauma, having lost Sarah, why he did what he did, and now facing the reality of what he just did. And the episode ends kind of underwhelming because that Ellie reveal should have been more impactful. It should have been more central. That should have been boom, the episode is over. For anybody who hasn't watched the show, that should have been the reveal. That should have been the ending. That should have been the cliffhanger. She's immune. Okay, now I know what the series is about. But the fact that they did it in the background and they focused more on Joel and the federal officer, I kind of felt underwhelmed. I know full well all of these criticisms are nitpicks. I know that they're not enough to say the series is bad or anything like that. I still gave that first episode an 8 out of 10. Now, going to episode 2 though, and episode 3 especially, which is what I really want to talk about, episode 3. I've done a 180 on this. And it's interesting how they've managed to do this in me. Episode 2, I can't remember the exact scene, but that was the most tense one. That was on the introduction to the clickers, which was so incredible, that scene, etc. But I'm trying to think. Okay, so yeah. So it's when they in the game, there are two separate scenes. There's the scene that we're still with Tess, we're with Ellie, and when we go into like this building and it's falling apart, that's the first time we encounter the clickers, etc. All that happens. And then, so there's three scenes actually. That's one scene. And then there's another scene, which is during the, I think it's a museum of sorts. And that's when Tess, spoilers again, that's when Tess gets bitten. So those are two separate moments. And then later on in the game, I think immediately after that, you have the scene with Joel and Ellie in the hotel. And so in my mind, those are three separate scenes. In the show, in episode 2, they kind of combine all those three moments, which makes sense. It's a show, it's different, it's not gameplay, etc. But my issue was when we first reached the hotel, and I'm like, wait, but this is later on. This is like Tess wasn't here for this, and I didn't appreciate it. And that was my initial reaction, like I don't appreciate that change. But then I realized the value of this in combining these moments, or in placing specific moments in different places or in different times throughout the timeline that I know and love. It allows me, for somebody that knows the game from beginning to end, to continue to feel surprised at times. So there's an element of surprise. I don't know exactly when Tess is going to get bitten. I don't know exactly when certain events are going to happen, because they're compressing them, or they're placing the certain dialogues or certain scenes in different times. So now I appreciate these changes. See, now I'm realizing what they're in episode 2 is when I'm realizing what they're doing. They're deviating just enough here and there progressively, so that people like me that know and love the game so well can still enjoy it as something fresh and new. And for those obviously that don't know, they won't notice those differences. So episode 2, awesome, 10 out of 10. The tension, the action, the test scene, which was different from the game, but I still enjoyed it. There's a lot going on in that episode, but especially the way they represented the clickers, incredible, 10 out of 10. Let's go to episode 3, which is what I really want to talk about. This is where I would say this, and it hasn't, as far as I've seen, it hasn't been controversial. But they knew they're risking some controversy here, because this is where they veered away the most from the game storyline. They literally changed an entire character, a big character, a loved character. They changed his ending to, you can argue, which ending is better or not, which one is more tragic. I would argue that the game ending to that character, ending quote, is more tragic, and it fits better with the world that they're establishing. This world where so much tragedy occurs in the series, in this episode. They made it a little more beautiful. It's a nice ending. It's a nice send-off to this character. They literally killed off Bill rather than leaving him alive, suffering the Frank's suicide as it happened in the game. And I understand why they did that, and it was very, very powerful, very beautiful, very moving. I did kind of feel like I just hinted at that this type of ending doesn't fit well with the world of The Last of Us, but it may just be that this world of The Last of Us, the HBO series, is not the world that I know from the games, and I have to accept that. And it didn't bother me. I'm not saying it bothered me. I'm just saying I'm interpreting this series, viewing this series through the lens of the game. And that's something that slowly these people are forcing me to stop doing. So first episode was very safe with very few differences, and I had issues with them. Second episode, it was they had a few more noticeable differences, but they still hit the right beats, and I understood where they were going with it. Okay, third episode, we're completely changing this character, and this character's ending, at least, and his interaction with Joel and Ellie. So they're taking much bigger risks, and I've already accepted that. I accepted it in episode 2, and now I'm appreciating it more in episode 3. So they've been very smart with the way they're rolling these episodes out. And the fact that it's episodic, meaning is you're not binge watching this show, you're watching it week to week, it's allowed me to slowly move with them, to slowly separate from let it go a little bit. Let that go. Realize that this is a new thing, and it's not new in the sense that it's completely different. But I don't know. It's different enough for me to say this is his own thing. This is his own world. These are their own characters, even though they're adapting, the video game itself. Now, What else do I want to say about this episode? So yeah, so to that point, I want like this is an example of why I'm loving these changes now, and how there it's clear that Neo and the creators and the writers and all of this and directors, they know that there are people like me that know the game so well, and they know how I'm gonna react to certain moments, and they've built these episodes around that in a sense, like they've taken that into consideration. So in this episode, for example, at the beginning of the episode, we see Joel and Ellie in the forest, and they're in nature. For the first time, Ellie's outside. And in the game, I remember that was such a beautiful and powerful moment, especially replaying it after playing part 2. So when I played part 1, the remake, and I got to this scene, it was more impactful because I know where the story ends, in a sense. So when I see Ellie in the forest for the first time, and she's looking around and she's amazed, she's in awe, she's in wonder, she's looking at the animals, and she's like, wow, like this is the first time I'm outside, and look how beautiful it is. Excuse me. Contrast that with Joel, and contrast that with future Ellie, and it's like, man, I wish Ellie's innocence was still there. I wish she had never lost that. I wish she never turned into whoever she turns in the future. I'm gonna try to avoid future spoilers. So, and there's a specific moment in that scene in the game where Ellie's she gets covered with like fireflies, which is obviously symbolic and all that stuff with light, the fireflies and all of that. But it's such a beautiful moment, and it's like I'm appreciating Ellie's innocence so much more. The hopeful way that she looks at the world is incredible, and I miss that. I miss that in my life. I miss that for Ellie. So when we go to the episode itself, the HBO episode, episode 3, we're in that moment where she's outside for the first time. She's sitting down by a tree, and she doesn't look as impressed as in the game. She's kind of just commenting, yeah, like I'm outside this is the first time I'm in nature or whatever. I'm in the forest. I'm outside. I thought there would be more bugs. I'm like, that's it? That's all you're gonna give me? Like, why would you change that scene so much? I was not feeling it. I said, no, you're missing the essence. You're missing all this innocence and all the stuff that you showed us in the game. Why would you not do that this time? Fast forward to the end of the episode, and in the game, you ride off in a truck or whatever, Joe, Ellie, and I believe Bill is still with you at that point. At that moment, you're looking for something, a battery or whatever it may be. The point is that, or no, you had found the battery at that point. But anyway, you go off in the truck and whatever. In the game, I mean in the show, the episode 3, when that scene, Bill is not there, and we have Joel and Ellie get in the truck for the first time, and Ellie's in awe in the truck, and she's amazed at all these details. Like she's moving the rear mirror and all that stuff. And when Joel tells her to put on the seatbelt, she doesn't know what he's talking about. He shows her, and then she finds it so cool when she buckles up, like just putting on a seatbelt. She's like, wow, like so cool. This is so cool. And you contrast that with Joel. Joel's like, this is just a beat up truck, like it's old or whatever. It'll get us to where we need to go. But for Ellie, this is awesome. This is a new experience. So this is where I say that they know what they're doing. They know that there are people like me who are gonna watch that scene in nature and be kind of underwhelmed with the fact that we didn't have that. We didn't have that moment of innocence and hope and all that stuff with Ellie. But it's not that they eliminated it, it's that they placed it somewhere else. And I would argue that this is even more powerful than in the nature, because nature objectively is beautiful. Like all of us, most of us anyway, can go out in nature and be impressed and be in awe. But so it's not something novel, not something new, but something so trivial as it being in a car and a truck. And for Ellie to find it so awesome and so beautiful and all of that stuff is more powerful because we can see more her innocence. Her innocence is clear. Her view of the world, her hope, and her joy, I guess you could say, is much more noticeable in that moment because it's so trivial. And that's when I noticed these people are geniuses. What they're creating here is a masterpiece. I hope they continue this. I hope they continue this. I hope that really this is where we're going with it. This episode was so good that I could talk so much about so much stuff. Not even mentioning Bill. Like the whole story, the way they did that, it was masterful. It was masterful. This guy, I forget his name, I'm sorry. I know him from Parks and Rec. and I've seen him elsewhere, but I know him as you know from Parks and Rec, and everybody's acting in this show is incredible, all of them, but by far, so far, the best performance goes to this man. I'm sorry for forgetting. I'm not good with names anyway. Even if I know the actor, I'm still gonna struggle with their names. So Bill, man, that performance out of this world. Like he's such nuance. The way he starts, the way he reacts to when he meets Frank for the first time in genuine worry. The way he reacts to having the sexual interaction with him, that scene, like it's such vulnerability, but he's scared to be vulnerable. He's never experienced this before, but he wants it, and it's like it's so beautiful the way that he does that scene, and then the strawberry scene when he laughs. The first time he tastes the strawberry, is just I'm getting choked up right now just talking about it. It's so beautiful, but at the same time, the way he's he's fearless in a sense, especially with Frank. He's gonna be there like when they first get attacked and Frank is sleeping. He wakes up looking for Bill. Bill's out there. Of course he's out there. He's already out there shooting. Like I just love it when he's about to die and the only thing that's in his mind is protecting Frank, like making sure that Frank is going to be okay when he's gone. Talking about the list and the items and go get Joe and he'll take care of you, all that stuff. When he tells him, I've never been scared, I think that's in the strawberry scene as well. I've never been scared except when you're here now. Because that's what happens when you love somebody like that. I know, like when you have family, when you have loved ones, obviously you fear in the sense that you don't want them to suffer, you don't want them to die. If you're all by yourself, all you got to worry about is yourself. So Bill in this episode actually represents what Ellie represents in that entire game. In this one episode, I think he represents what Ellie is supposed to represent throughout the entire game. I do have to admit that when I realized, even though I called it, I was like, why don't you just kill yourself? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And he does exactly that. Bill and Frank, you do commit suicide together. I understand the sentiment and all of that. I got to admit, I was kind of let down. I was like, oh, so we're not going to get the Bill that we know from the game. Like we're not going to see that. We're not going to see his interactions with Ellie and Joe and all that stuff. We're not going to see that. And I was kind of disappointed for a moment. I wasn't sure what to feel about it until Joel and Ellie reach the house and she reads the letter he left them. And that's when I was 100% convinced. I started crying for a few reasons. One reason is because I know what this means. I know where their story is going, and just hearing those words from that letter, thinking about where the story is going, it just made me sad. It just made me sentimental. It just made me cry. I couldn't contain myself, and I was also crying for other reasons. I was thinking about reflecting on somebody else and like going through what Bill and Frank, like how would that feel in that moment? You're saying goodbye to the person. Like I don't know. It was so sad, but it was beautiful at the same time. It was powerful. It was just, this is one of the greatest episodes I've ever seen of any show ever. I would argue it is. And yeah, that performance, man, that performance. I hope that, I don't know how like Golden Globes and all that stuff works. I don't know how long you have to be on screen for anything, but hopefully that one episode is enough for this man to get some recognition in the next Golden Globes, which would be next year. Hopefully they don't forget about him because this is very early on. We're still in January when this hits. So yeah, I'm loving this show. Another 10 out of 10 experience, another 10 out of 10 episode, except episode 3 is way better than episode 2 and 1. So episode 1, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Episode 2 and 3 are 10 out of 10s, but episodes 3, 10 out of 10 is way higher in my mind than episode 2. I mean, they're different episodes, but that's just the way this episode was shot, directed, written, acted, and the way it made me feel, just completely blown away. I'm in love with this series finally. I say finally, it's only the 3rd episode. I'm in love with this series. We only got 9 episodes, so there's 6 episodes left. I absolutely love the way now I'm feeling like they're subtly establishing this relationship with Joe and Ellie. I would have loved to see more of them. Knowing that it's only 9 episodes kind of worries me a bit that they're going to rush that relationship. But all of my worries, all of my concerns so far have been throw them out the window. They know that they know my concerns, and they know what they're doing much better than I know what I'm thinking or what I'm wanting. So yeah, man, I'm loving The Last of Us, this series, and yeah, these have been my thoughts. I want to talk about more specifics and all that stuff, but I think I'm gonna leave it there. I just wanted to get my feelings out, especially about episode 3, you know, because I loved it so much, man. This is a great series. I hope they continue this trend from episode 3 onward. I hope that at the end we do get what I said at the beginning. A series that is much more than simply a faithful adaptation. A faithful adaptation for most of us would have been enough. For me, it's not enough, even though I said it would be enough before the series came out. After episode 1, I don't feel it's enough to be simply a faithful adaptation. I'm hoping that they go beyond that. So far, they are. Episode 3 especially. Episode 3 is what I want this series to be. Faithful, but yet its own thing, and its own thing be so great that I can appreciate it independent of my love for the games. I hope they continue this trend, and I think they will. I think they will. I'm not gonna make any predictions. I have a few, but I'm gonna keep them inside until the series is over. These have been my thoughts on The Last of Us, the HBO series. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you like this type of content and want to see more, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Until next time.